The following program was paid for by the friends and partners of WLMB-TV 40 Toledo.
Some of the deepest theological music we have comes out of rap music, where they really go deep, not just talking about, hey, love God, but really going deep. And so, you know, that breaking down that perception that if it's this style of music, it has to be bad. No, any style of music can glorify God.
Well, I want to welcome you to another episode of Main Street, the fastest half hour on television. I'm Dr. Jamey Schmitz. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host for the past 21 years, Virginia Bossa.
Well, Jamey, it is going to be a fun show today, and
It is, because two of my favorite people in the whole wide world are here.
Well, you know, you're president and CEO over at Yes FM, and so we have got the guys from the morning show over there, and so we're excited because we want to welcome Jeff Howe, who's the station manager and chief operating officer, and Tommy Briggs, who's the pastor over at Gateway Baptist Church, but together they co-host the Wake Up Call morning show at Yes FM. So welcome, guys. It is wonderful to have you here.
Welcome, gentlemen. This is so exciting.
We're excited to be here, and you're the best CEO we've ever had.
Oh, thank you.
How much did he pay you for that?
I don't know. I wrote it down. I'll make sure I got it right. I did. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. We're really excited to be here, and hopefully you won't regret having us on, but we are excited to be here.
Well, it's going to be a fun show, so welcome, and please tell us a little bit about yourselves and your roles at Yes FM.
Well, I've been at Yes FM for just over 25 years, so I started about 9 months after they came on the air, and program director there for 20 years, and then just a few years ago became the station manager at Yes FM.
Yeah, and doing a great job at it. And Tommy, tell us a little bit about your history with Yes FM.
It started, we heard this rumor. We had heard rumors for years that there was going to be a Christian station coming on, but a friend of mine was heard the rumor, and he was taking broadcasting in college, and he applied to be the news director, and he got the job as their initial news director. And so through him, they brought me in. I started coming in one day a week to do funny little bits and little
So that was like
characters.
how many years ago?
That would have been all the way back like 92, 93, yeah,
wow.
Way back then. And so we did that for quite a few years, and then took a little break for a while, and then ran into Vonda one day at a concert or something. She's like, you should come back on. So I came back on with her. At the time, it was her and Todd Hostetler doing the morning show, and came back on with them, and then started doing part-time, and then eventually took over the morning show, and now here Jeff and I are.
Yeah, about how long has the morning show been running?
Well, a little over 3 years.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that show.
Well, we drag ourselves in at 6 in the morning, not knowing what we're doing, and we just wing it. and yeah, we have a good time. I think we're a good mix because he's more of the the spiritual intellectual. I'm more the average Joe, and when we interview people, we got those different perspectives. But the star of the show are our listeners. Oh my gosh, we get them involved, heavily involved by text or getting on the phone and calling and getting their opinions, and they are the stars of the show because they're funnier than us.
Well, speaking of your listeners, who are your listeners?
Our target is youth and young families, but we've got all ages that are listening, and it's one of those stations that I think the whole family can agree on, where sometimes the kids don't want to hear what the parents want to listen to, but with Yes FM, that's something the whole family can agree on.
Yeah.
And
so, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, well, what kind of music can people expect to hear?
Christian rap, rock, dance, and pop. More upbeat music. One of our phrases is positive beats. So, anything with a good upbeat sound to it.
Yeah. But, Tommy, I understand that you're going to share to our viewers that Yes FM is going to have a format change.
Yeah, we're going all polka.
All polka.
We've heard rumors that the kids are into polka now, so we're going to go all Christian polka.
All Christian polka. How many songs do you have to launch out with?
We got 3.
Three
it's going to be a little repetitive at the beginning, but we'll have some chatter in between.
I have 4 teenagers. Right. I'm sure they would just be thrilled.
People tuning in and out. Yeah, polka is going to be the new rage. I can feel it.
So that was just a joke for all the viewers at home. There is no new format. Tell us why you chose the format. 20 years ago, I think you launched with the very first song, Stephen Curry's Chapman, The Great Adventure. That would be mild by today's standards. How do you, Jeff, you're the program director for 20 of those 25 years. How do you decide you know, where music is going with the youth, and how does it sound different than it did 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Asking around, reading articles, talking to youth pastors, talking to youth, talking to those that are involved with the youth. It's a lot of research and networking with other stations as well. There's a few other stations that kind of gear themselves towards the youth, and just kind of watching the trends, and you got to adjust with that. So if you want to keep your focus on reaching the youth.
And it has changed a lot. I mean, when initially started, we were more of a rock and roll kind of format. Now it's shifted, more kind of rap, and then hip hop, and then dance and EDM and things like that. And I think one of the things Jeff has always done a great job at is keeping our focus on that mission. You know, God has called us to reach young people and to reach youth. That's our passion. We want to reach this next generation for Jesus Christ. And that means we got to play the music they're listening to, the styles of music that they're listening to. And I think one of the things Jeff has always done a great job, both as program director and now station manager, is keeping, you know, you hear about mission creep, right? It's easy to let mission creep come in and you lose sight of your focus. And he's always kept us kind of laser focused in on this is who we are meeting. It's not about the music I want to play or he wants to hear. It's about the music they want to hear, so we can reach them with the message of Jesus Christ.
Well, you know, I have 4 children, 4 teenagers, and they listen to Yes FM. They love, you know, that style of music and everything. So as a parent, I say thank you, you know, and sometimes I think, you know, that's their form of rebellion, listening to Yes FM, because, you know, I like the slower stuff. But why are you guys passionate about the ministry?
Oh, it's just something, well, God has put on my heart. It's all God. I got the bug for radio when I was 10 years old, pretending I was a DJ in the basement. And grew up in the church, and started hearing about all these Christian artists and started playing that. And I was one of those people that tried to get a radio station, Christian radio station going. And as I was doing that, I found out that someone else was, and said, okay, this is too much for me. But just seeing the impact that music has on youth. I mean, it did when I was a kid. It influenced what I am today. And there's so much nasty stuff out there, and it's just getting worse. I was working at a former radio station, and it was a secular rock station. And one day I walked into the music room where we had all the albums, back when albums were being used before CDs. And there was an article, there was a trade magazine sitting there, and just a picture of this new band called Faith No More. And just how they looked, and just the title of their name. That's the turning point that really got me passionate on trying to get something going with Christian radio. Then I heard about Yes FM coming and applied for that.
Very good. Tommy, what is the importance of music in our lives?
You know, especially with young people, I think music, you know, it impacts us almost on every level, right? I mean, it impacts you emotionally. You're reacting to the sounds you're hearing. You're reacting to the music you're hearing, whether it's up. We've all heard a song. You can hear a song, you're kind of down. You hear an upbeat song, it picks you up. You hear a mellow song, it can kind of mellow you out. We know it can affect our emotions, but then it also affects us on an intellectual level because we're hearing those lyrics. Right. And people do pay attention to lyrics. You know, parents may say, well, I can't understand those lyrics, but your kid can, right? Your kid can understand what is being said and we're taking that in, we're processing that in. And even if kids think, oh, I don't really listen to the lyrics, it doesn't really matter what they're saying, I just like the beat and stuff, but they are hearing it. And I know, you know, I've got young kids like you, Virginia, and it's great that I can turn on Yes FM in the car, you know, because I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and she'll start singing along on songs, and they're singing the lyrics. They know the songs. Even at 5, she knows the lyrics.
Right, they're learning about the Lord. They're learning theology through these songs.
And I would much rather have, you know, my 10-year-old loves 21 Pilots as his favorite band, you know. I would rather have them singing songs about God, singing songs that are affirming, that are life affirming, than singing. You know, the other day I was reading an article about Cardi B. It was on a news site. I don't even remember why they were writing about her, but they mentioned her song and saying it's probably not a good thing that this song's on. And I was like, well, I want to check that out. I don't know a lot about Cardi B, but I wanted to check out the lyrics. So I went on lyrics.com. You can check out lyrics there, and I started reading through her lyrics. I mean, if I had them in front of me right now, we could not read them right here. We would be in violation of all kinds of FCC rules. I mean, they were that vulgar and nasty. And I'm like, I am so glad Yes FM's here, because I would not want my daughter listening to this garbage and this filth. And it was garbage and filth. I mean, it was, I was amazed. And I know, you know, I'm not naive about what's out there. I was stunned by this. And I was like, I am so glad we have something like Yes FM that our kids can listen to, so they're not filling their heads with this garbage.
And you go on iTunes, the iTunes store, and you look at the albums. Just about half of the albums, at least, have that explicit lyrics symbol on the album. And several years ago, over 10 years ago, I think we were the first radio station to actually do this, where we put out this challenge out there. Listen to Yes FM and Christian music only for 2 weeks. You'll see it have a positive effect on your life. And people have done that, and we get written in all the time about people that how it works. There's people even just after listening to it a day, they've noticed that a positive effect on their life. Music influences all of us.
Yeah. What would you say, you know, after being involved in this 20, 25 years, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about Yes FM?
Well, I think there's a lot of people think that Christian radio is supposed to be a certain way, a certain format, which most of the radio stations are, and nothing against them, we need those. But there's so much in the secular realm with this genre of music that we have to have this alternative. We really need that alternative to reach these people that maybe this typical Christian radio can't reach. I see Yes FM, we hear many stories of how we reach people that normally wouldn't go to church, but they will listen to this music. So we've got to have this alternative. Every city should have this alternative.
Yeah, and many, many testimonies of people over the years that would have never listened to Christian contemporary music or never would listen to a Christian teaching program formatted, but they listen to Yes FM because it, in a lot of ways, it replicates the sound that they hear on secular rock and roll stations.
Yes.
And speaking,
I was just going to say also the idea that certain types of music are bad in and of themselves. If it's rap, it has to be bad, because it's just rap music, so all rap music is bad. And, I was never a huge rap fan just because it's not my favorite style of music, but I will tell you some of the best theological content that you will get in Christian music comes out of rap music. Yeah. One, because it's lyric driven, so it's lyric heavy. We've got guys rapping about, Misham Gresham and all the theologians and stuff like this. I mean, it's crazy. There was a time when all these rap artists stopped making albums because they were all going to seminary to get seminary degrees. And, some of the deepest theological music we have comes out of rap music where they really go deep, not just talking about, hey, love God, but really going deep. And so, that breaking down that perception that if it's this style of music, it has to be bad. No, any style of music can glorify God if it's given to God and done for His glory.
And I agree with that. My kids like some of that, Christian rap, and so then I was like, well, I got to check out some of these lyrics myself. And yes, that stuff is deep, and so I know that they are learning, deep, answering deep theological questions within the music. But we talked a little bit about music selection a little while ago. But and then we talked about Cardi B. So what do you do about some Christian artists that cross over and maybe they have one song that's kind of a hit within the Christian world, but all the other music is kind of questionable.
I love it when artists that are Christian, there's a whole debate of, is it a Christian artist? We look at it as, is the artist a Christian? And we believe that, God calls different artists to reach different people. I would much rather have Christians going into the secular realm, like making music, than non-Christians. But I think it's great when you have a band like 21 Pilots, which are Christians that get in the mainstream, or Skillet, or Lecrae, where they're being played on mainstream radio. Their music is, you're hearing their music on commercials and during sports programs. That way, when people tune across the dial, they hear something that they're familiar with on Yes FM that they've heard elsewhere, and then they stay tuned in. That's kind of like the hook or the thing that gets their attention, and then with the other artists that we play, gives them the words, gives them the truth, gives them the message of salvation. And so I think that's a great combination. Is some of the music draws them in, and then the other music that they'll hear will hit them with the message.
Well, wonderful. All right. Well, we're going to talk more about this and the power of Christian music and the impact that it's had on your listeners when we come back.
So many stories of just at the right moment, God has a song that comes on for that person that just needed to hear that song right at the right time. It's amazing.
Now, back to Main Street.
Well, we're here with Jeff Howe and Tommy Briggs of Yes FM, and we've been talking about the impact that Christian radio is making. And so maybe you could share a little bit about what your listeners, how they've been impacted.
Oh, man, we could spend all day talking about that. We've developed a whole book of stories that we put together, but one that really stands out is a young lady that wrote in and said that she was ready to commit suicide. She was all set to go. She decided she was going to turn the radio on just one last time before she did it. And a song from POD came on that really touched her. And that was the song that she needed to hear. And she ended up not committing suicide and just turned her life around. Just we've heard so many stories of just at the right moment, God has a song that comes on for that person that just needed to hear that song right at the right time. It's amazing. To God be the glory, you know, and
yes. to hear those stories and for those stories to come back to you. And, you know, I'm sure that's just one amongst many and you know, and that you don't even hear all of the impact that's going on there. Yeah, just everyone being, you know, going to do drugs and then turned on the radio, heard a song and said, no, I can't do that. Someone that just was walking down the wrong path and was a leader of his home, a father, and the music touched his life. He started getting the family to listen. The whole family came to know Christ, and now he's a God-fearing leader of his household. Awesome. That's wonderful. Tommy, how have you seen Christian music change over the last 25 years since Yes FM signed on? One, I think the diversity of it has expanded. It's much wider. You have so many different genres now. Including polka. Yeah, you know, there probably is polka. Well, we have accordions in there, some, you know, in some places. Now, people are really going to think you guys have polka. How much? No, we don't. We do have, who's the guy with the, you know who I'm talking about, the band. Anyway. But you know, so the diversity, I think the quality has improved. Yes. I think early on there was a real pressure, and probably even a pressure on the artist to say, yeah, all right, well, who do you sound like? Who in the secular world do you sound like? Who can we compare you to in the secular world? And so I think there was a lot of pressure on artists, instead of just to copycat. Right, to copycat. Instead of just doing the music that God had given them to do, it's like, okay, well, let's make it sound like this, or let's make it sound like that. We've broken beyond that, and so you see a lot more inventiveness, creativity, where Christian artists are actually leading the way, not just following along afterwards. So I think in quality and quantity, it's improved vastly over the 25 years. And not that there weren't great, there were some fantastic artists in the early days of Christian music, and thank God for them. We wouldn't be here today without them. But I think that there's more freedom, I think, in the industry as well, that allows for that creativity that maybe wasn't there for some of those early artists. And I think that's why, too, that there's a lot more Christian artists being played on the mainstream, because they're doing just that, being their own, what God has given them to do. Now, Jeff, you and I talk about this an awful lot, but share with our viewers how technology, such as streaming apps and all the different technologies that are out there that are, you know, dissecting the listening world, have impacted Yes FM, and how has Yes FM, you know, changed from just being a broadcast signal to, you know, embracing technology, because you do a really great job with that. Yeah, when the internet came along, that changed everything. Yeah, CDs one thing, but when the internet came along, and then Apple with their iTunes, that changed the whole music world in general, not just radio, but the whole music industry. And there's so many different avenues where you can get music, and you get it for free with YouTube and Pandora and Spotify. So in order to compete, we had to go with those changing technology trends and try to be ahead of the game of everybody else, not wait to see what everybody else is doing, but to try and think, okay, what do we need to do? And one of the first things that we needed to do was stream on the internet. And that has opened our broadcast to the world. We've had people listening, you know, soldiers listening in Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Afghanistan, and people all over the country tuning in, which is exciting. And a lot of people across the country listening through our internet stream that you get through our website. We have our own mobile apps, and by the grace of God, opened that door of opportunity to be on iHeartRadio, which has really been a blessing to us. Incredible. Incredible blessing to us. We get a lot of listeners from all over the country because of that. And another thing about technology is social media. Such a big thing. We've got to be involved in social media, and those are always got to watch those trends too. Just like the genres of music that youth are into change over the years, what social media they're into changes over the years. So you got to keep up with that and be on social media. And now we have even our Alexa skill, where you can hear us on Alexa and just say, Alexa, play Yes FM or Yes FM Classic. And Yes FM Classic is something else that we're able to provide for those that really were into the music that we played in the early days. They can go to our Yes FM Classic stream that you can
access through our website or our mobile app and listen to the music of the early days of Yes FM.
Now, Jeff, one of the very first things we did when I came on board at Yes FM is you and April O'Brien, our program director, we went to Detroit, Michigan for a seminar that talked about, it was called DASH, and it was talking about the dashboard, you know, and what does it look like? I mean, imagine a world without AM and FM not being built into cars, you know, for the dashboard. We just speak a little bit about what we learned at that conference and what is happening with the dashboard in America inside automobiles, because that's where a lion's share of listening takes place.
Yes, it is kind of scary that, you know, some car manufacturers are even saying they won't even have FM and AM radio in it, or it'd be very hard to find. And it's up and emerging thing, which our streaming providers let us know that we have access to this now, a thing called Apple CarPlay, which will be in a lot more of cars now. And being on TuneIn and iHeartRadio will help us in this transition of the changing world of car radios. So we're keeping up with that trend and trying our best. And you've got to, or
But it's definitely a segmented listenership than the old days where it was just either a FM or AM signal inside your car. You know, all these different, but it's really great that Yes FM has really followed the trends and opened themselves up so that they're on all those new platforms that are being designed because of technology.
Well, it certainly is exciting to hear about all the, you know, the changes that are happening at Yes FM. But, you know, through the years, you guys have had so many people, you know, that you've interviewed and talked to, so many guests. Tell us about some of your favorites.
Oh, we've got to interview people like Kirk Cameron, which was kind of neat, and other movie stars and sports figures.
Yeah. Corbin Burnson, who I was fascinated to talk to Corbin Burnson because I remembered him from LA Law. I did not know any of his story. And so he's coming on to talk about this film, and I'm like, well, is this just a guy who got involved in a Christian movie because it was a job and he took it and it was a paycheck? And he started talking about his faith and started talking about how as he advanced in his career, there was an emptiness there, and he just felt drawn back. He had grown kind of up in the church and gotten away from it early in his career and shared with that. And I was fascinated to hear that because I had never heard that story about him. And so that was neat to hear. You know, sometimes you get to interview these people and you're like, wow, you know, you see God working in their lives and drawing people back, and it's neat to be able to experience that. And then we have some regulars. A guy named Dave Zanotti joins us from the AP Roundtable, talking about, you know, the realm of politics and stuff like that, but always from a biblical framework. And that's one of the things I think is fun about the show. Is like our guests, I think our show mirrors this too. Sometimes we have people on, it's just fun. You know, we're just goofing around, we're laughing. We had a couple of guys on from a comedy duo that were on, and we just had a great time with them. And then other times we'll get on someone like a Dave Zanotti, or we'll get different, we talked to Dr. Richard Land, president of the Southern Evangelical Seminary this morning. More substantive guests like that. And there's that nice balance of, yes, this is just going to be for fun, and we're just going to, you know, what's your favorite color of M&M today? And then other times we can talk about, all right, here's what's happening in our country today, and here's what's happening in our culture today, and in politics, and how does this intersect with the Bible, and how does this intersect with the Word of God and what's happening in our culture? And I think we have a great balance of those two. That if you tune in for any amount of time, you're going to have some fun and you're going to laugh, but also I think we're going to teach you something and you're going to learn something, and it's going to connect you with the Word. And
I also want to say that I think both of you and all the other DJs at Yes FM have probably interviewed every single music artist that plays on Yes FM.
Yeah, those are always fun too.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fun, you know, what are some of the most fun moments that you guys can recollect?
I was just doing one day a week with Todd and Vonda, and I don't know what we were talking about. We were talking about Valentine's Days. Some guy calls in, some crazy guy calls in, and talks about for his anniversary, his wedding anniversary, he buys his wife a funeral plot. What? And we're like, yes. And they're like, what are you doing? No. And he's talking about this is the greatest thing that ever happened. It's great, and it was awesome, and everybody should buy their wife a funeral plot on their anniversary, right? And Todd and Vonda make it, you know, they're talking to this guy like, what are you talking about? They get done with the interview, and I'm like, I can't believe it. That was my dad. It was my father who called in.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like, I can't believe that. And Todd looks at me and goes, you know, our mics are still on.
That's awesome.
So, and it was my father, and he did indeed buy my mom a funeral plot for their anniversary.
Yeah. Hey, we have just a couple minutes left, but let me ask you this. You you know, we keep talking about it as Yes FM, but it's really the Yes FM radio network.
Yes.
Where are your 4 signals, and where can people tune in? But also, you just opened a new facility in one of the cities. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Well, in order of when we came on, of course, Toledo, 89.3 FM, came on in 1992. And then, well, now I put myself on the spot. Fremont and Wauseon were pretty close originally. Wauseon's an 88.5. Originally, Fremont was at 88.1, but that went off the air because of a tower issue, and then we came back on at 89.1. And then 89.3 in Lima. And that is where we have our new live Lima studio and office, where we are broadcasting live from there. To connect with our main studio. We can interview people in Lima, and so they don't have to make the drive all the way up to Toledo. It's helping us to connect better with the Lima community, both on and off the air.
And where is that located? More importantly, what's right next to that new facility?
We're located in the co-working center, which is located in downtown Lima, 220 West Market Street, inside the Meeting Place on Market, a coffee shop and little cafe.
So a little coffee while you're going to the office.
I am praying for a coffee shop to open up next to this Toledo studio. That's my new prayer now.
Oh, wonderful. All right, guys. Well, how can people find out more about upcoming events and learn more about Yes FM?
Well, they can tune in, of course, in our many avenues of listening, but also our website at yeshome.com.
All right. And, before we let you go, what closing comment or challenge might you like to leave with our viewers?
Well, challenge to really listen to Yes FM and understand why we are different from most Christian radio stations and the need that we have, the importance of having this alternative to these genres of music that are so prevalent and popular in the mainstream culture. There's not much like this, and it's a hard road to go. It's not a big money maker, but it is having such a great impact and reaching people that churches and other Christian radio stations would never be able to reach.
That's right. So make sure to tune in, viewers, to the Morning Wake Up Show with Jeff and Tommy from 6 to 9 a.m. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. You guys are the best.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks
Two of my favorite people in the whole wide world.
And you're the best too, Jamey, the best boss we ever had.
You guys are awesome. It's fun having you here. And also, yes, I want to challenge you. Jeff had mentioned that 2-week challenge. So tune into Yes FM for 2 weeks and see what God does in your life. Well, thank you for joining us this week on Main Street. Please join us next week for another great episode.
We hope that Main Street has been a blessing to you today. Please feel free to contact the following to learn more about the topics discussed on today's show. WLMB would like to thank all the faithful supporters of WLMB that make this program possible. Main Street is a production of WLMB-TV 40 in Toledo. All rights reserved.